Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Russia announces a fresh swap of prisoners of war with Ukraine, saying it was part of agreements reached between Moscow and Kiev during talks in Istanbul last month. Germany plans to purchase up to 2,500 armored fighting vehicles and as many as 1,000 battle tanks as part of a joint European effort to create new NATO brigades to deter Russia. A large explosion at a fuel station in the Rome suburbs injures around 30 people. Reports say the blast happened during refueling. China is set to impose anti-dumping taxes of up to 34.9% on brandy imported from the European Union, starting the 5th of July. This comes after Beijing launched a probe into EU brandy last year. And Singapore's central bank penalizes several top global financial institutions, including Citibank and Swiss lender UBS, for breaches linked to the island state's biggest money laundering case. Hello and welcome. Let's begin with the latest on the Ahmedabad Air India crash. It has been weeks since the tragedy struck. A total of 260 people were killed, out of which 241 were passengers on the doomed aircraft that crashed minutes after it took off. Left behind are the families of the victims, who are not only mourning the loss of their loved ones, but are also reportedly struggling to receive the due compensation from Air India. Families have accused the airline of pressuring them during the initial compensation process. Families have alleged that Air India has threatened them with no compensation if they fail to complete the questionnaire provided by the company. Now, these concerns are being raised by a UK-based law firm, which is representing over 40 such families. The firm has released a statement explaining their ordeal of their clients. Now, the law firm said that relatives arriving to identify remains of their loved ones in the days after the crash were put in a crowded, dark room in the intense heat with other bereaved families. And then they were told to fill out documentation and a complicated questionnaire asking for important financial information. The firm claimed that the families were not given any warning, legal advice, or a copy of the documents. The firm said that the questionnaire provided by Air India was full of legal jargon, and the airline did not explain those terms to the families in a bid to slash compensation in the future. Air India officials reportedly went to homes of some of the families and asked why they had not yet completed the forms. The law firm has labelled Air India's treatment of the vulnerable families as shocking, appalling and shameful. The firm has also advised their clients to not fill out the form without seeking legal counsel. Now, what has been Air India's response to these claims? The airline has refuted these allegations as unsubstantiated and inaccurate. In a statement issued in response to the allegations, Air India said that it had simply sought basic information from the recipients of the compensation to establish family relationships and to ensure payments are received by those entitled to them. Responding to the controversy around the financial dependency question, the airline said that it was a fair and necessary question to process payments to those most in need of assistance. The airline also denied making any unsolicited visits to the homes of the families. On the question of compensation, Air India said that it has released interim compensation to 47 victim families so far, and the documents of 55 others have been verified. The claims made by the families of the victims are serious and disturbing, and just a plain denial would not help Air India to save its drowning reputation. Now it remains to be seen, how will the airline handle this crisis? China wants to choose the next Dalai Lama, and India has answered that can't happen. A day after China asserted its inclusion into the Dalai Lama's succession plans, India has delivered a direct snub. On Thursday, India made it clear the decision on the Dalai Lama's reincarnation rests with him and the Gadim Podrang Trust, not with Beijing, not with the Chinese Communist Party, and definitely not with a golden urn. India's Minority Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju has made the announcement. He called the Dalai Lama the most important and defining institution for the Buddhists. He said the reincarnation will be decided by established conventions by the Dalai Lama himself. Nobody else has the right to make this decision. Now, Rijiju is a practicing Buddhist, is also set to represent the Indian government on the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday event in Dharamshala on the 6th of July. Meanwhile, China on Friday objected to Rijiju's comments. It urged India to act cautiously on Tibet-related issues and to recognize what it calls the anti-China separatist nature of the 14th Dalai Lama.
We hope that the Indian side will fully understand the highly sensitive nature of Tibet-related issues, recognize the anti-China separatist nature of the 14th Dalai Lama, abide by its commitments on the Tibet-related issue, be prudent in its words and actions, and stop interfering in China's internal affairs through the use of the Tibet-related issue, so as to avoid affecting the improvement and development of Sino-Indian relations.
Beijing has always viewed the Dalai Lama as a threat, a separatist, and a Nobel Prize winner who refuses to toe their line. Now the Dalai Lama has finally spoken. Just days before his 90th birthday, he ended years of speculation. He confirmed his reincarnation will happen, and the institution of the Dalai Lama will continue after his death. The Gadim Podrang Trust, based in India's Dharamshala, has the sole authority to choose the successor. Tibet's parliament in exile, based in Dharamshala, also echoes the same thoughts. It says that a system is in place for the government to continue its work, while officers at the trust find and recognize the 15th Dalai Lama. China was not pleased. They rejected the announcement. They say the successor of the Dalai Lama must be chosen using ancient rituals, drawing lots from a golden urn, the system introduced by the Qing dynasty, conveniently controlled by Beijing. But Tibetans aren't buying that. They say, how can a regime that rejects religion meddle in a spiritual process? Here's what you need to know. The Dalai Lama has lived in exile in India since 1959, after fleeing a failed uprising against the Chinese rule. In his recent book, Voice for the Voiceless, he made it clear that his successor will be born outside of China. And this isn't just about religion. It's a global power game. The United States has already backed the Tibetan people's right to choose. US lawmakers had previously said that they won't allow China to influence the choice of the Dalai Lama's successor. In 2024, the then US President Joe Biden signed the Resolve Tibet Act to facilitate the resolution of the conflict between Tibet and China. And now there's India's support too. More than 100,000 Tibetan Buddhists live in India. Their spiritual leader is protected in the country, and international relations experts say that his presence in India gives New Delhi a measure of leverage with rival China. For Beijing, it's about control. For Tibetans, it's about freedom and human rights. The Dalai Lama turns 90 this week, and his words are clear. But the question is, will Beijing back down? And let's shift our focus now to West Asia. As the war in Gaza rages on and many Israeli hostages remain in Hamas captivity, Tensions inside Israel remain high as well. In the latest, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the Nir Oz kibbutz near the Gaza Strip. This marks Netanyahu's first visit to the area since the 2023 Hamas attack. The community saw the highest number of hostages taken from any single community.
I'm here with my wife Sarah in kibbutz Nir Oz, facing the sites of destruction, devastation, and massacre, with the members of the kibbutz, those who survived, and also those who returned from captivity.
During his visit, Netanyahu inspected the damage and also met the families of the hostages still held in Gaza. But his visit quickly turned into chaos. Netanyahu's arrival sparked loud protests in the area. Dozens of Israelis protested outside the kibbutz. They demanded that Netanyahu secure a ceasefire deal to release the remaining hostages in Gaza. Protesters chanted slogans expressing their anger and anguish at being separated from their loved ones. All of them had just one unified message: bring their loved ones back home from Hamas captivity.
Should be ashamed being in Beersheba this week, being everywhere and not coming here and not asking us to like he didn't ask for a pardon. You need to say the word slicha. This is what I want to hear from him. You have to kiss my feet. Everybody survivor, kiss the feet and ask for forgiveness.
It's hard to face the truth. And he was the prime minister. He's responsible. But right now we should focus on bringing back everybody home. That's the most important thing. I came here today from Modi'in. I wasn't able to be here on October 7th, but I'm here today to stand with the people of Nir Oz and to tell them that they're not alone. We're waiting for the 50 brothers and sisters who are still in Gaza to come back home, and we want them home now. And I'm here to say to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's the only guy who can seal the deal together with President Trump, bring them home now. They don't have time. We need them back home ASAP.
Protesters in kibbutz also expressed their concerns over the war raging in Gaza and called for an immediate end to the conflict.
We want them all back. And the third thing, and for me it's really important that people will know, that not all the Israelis think the same about what happened in Gaza, it would happen with the Palestinian. I come from the peace movement. I think it's very wrong what's going on there. I think the Israelis are lost. I think we have a young soldier that doesn't understand what they are doing. And I wish it would be stopped.
And what has been Netanyahu's response to these protests? He has promised to rebuild the Nir Oz kibbutz, which has been ravaged by Hamas. He also promised the people to bring back all of the hostages. Netanyahu told the people of the kibbutz that he felt their pain.
You feel to the depths of your soul the magnitude of the pain, the depth of the sorrow, the trauma that befell an entire community and still befall it. I feel a deep obligation, first of all, to ensure the return of all our hostages, all of them. There are still 20 alive and there are more dead. We will bring them all back.
Netanyahu and his government have faced severe backlash from Israelis all across the country for not doing enough to get the hostages back. Reportedly, a total of 251 people were taken hostage during the Hamas attacks on southern Israel on the 7th of October 2023. Out of these, some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, were reportedly killed. Now, most of the hostages who returned alive to Israel so far were released as a part of deals with Hamas during 2 temporary ceasefires in late 2023 and early 2025. As Israelis continue to press for a ceasefire, the pressure on Netanyahu and his government is mounting. Prime Minister Netanyahu is set to meet US President Donald Trump at the White House next week. They will discuss a Washington-backed proposal for a 60-day ceasefire. It reportedly includes a phased release of hostages as well. The outcome of this meeting will be closely watched by the rest of the world. But as of now, there is no relief for families of the Israeli hostages held in Gaza, who are anxious and running out of hope. The United States has fired another shot in its oil war with Iran. More sanctions, more penalties, and more pressure. This time, the US has gone after Iran's secret oil empire. The ships, the companies, and the people helping Tehran sell oil under the radar. 6 entities and 4 vessels linked to Iran have been sanctioned. The US says Iran has been smuggling oil into global markets, using fake identities, forged documents, and even ghost ships. Some Iranian oil was disguised as Iraqi through falsified paperwork. And where did the oil go? To the West. Now, at the center of it all, a man named Salem Ahmed Said, a dual Iraqi-British national who owns several companies accused of coordinating these secret oil sales. Some of them allegedly went straight to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, a group Washington calls a terrorist organization. The US is also targeting Hezbollah's financial network. Sanctions have been slapped on 7 officials and 1 entity linked to the Al-Qad al-Hassan, which is a Hezbollah-controlled financial institution. The US State Department said it will face economic restrictions. With this maximum pressure, the Trump administration aims at crippling Iran's top revenue source, oil. The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that Iran's behavior has left it decimated. While it has had every opportunity to choose peace, its leaders have chosen extremism, according to him. And Bessent added that the country's treasury will continue targeting Iran and its revenue sources to intensify economic pressure and to disrupt the regime's access to financial resources, the money that Iran uses to fuel its destabilizing activities. Iranian oil exports have been under the lens due to the country's nuclear ambitions and its support for proxy groups across West Asia. A 2023 report said that a fuel oil smuggling network in Iraq generates at least $1 billion a year for Iran and its proxies. Those funds are under US scanner now. So Washington is going after the shadow fleet and tankers that switch off their tracking devices. This is Iran's oil game, according to Washington, and it's still functioning. Despite previous US sanctions, Iran's oil production has not dropped. Crude is still being sold. And who's buying it? China. Now here's where things get interesting. While US imposes sanctions, Donald Trump seems to be softening his stance. He recently said that China can keep buying Iranian oil. Hours after the recent US airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, he claimed the US totally obliterated the country's nuclear program. And that's what reveals Washington's strategy. On one hand, maximum pressure. On the other, selective exceptions. The US has been sanctioning Iran's oil networks for decades, trying to cripple Tehran's main revenue source. But the question remains, will this strategy affect Iran's regime, or will this push this trade deeper into the dark? And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again next week at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gursheen Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. We begin with the latest on Indian Prime Minister's five-nation tour. After his first stop in Ghana, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now in Trinidad and Tobago for a two-day visit. Prime Minister Modi was received by the Prime